Hi, I'm Hannah Judson, and welcome to the show. Today, I'm speaking with the dynamic, amazing Karen Lauria Saillant, director of Philadelphia's International Opera Theater. She is a musician, stage director, opera singer, librettist, playwright, actor, commedia dell'arte artist, pianist, choral director, vocal coach, and respiratory specialist. She's also owner of the Fire Music Venue, which is the oldest original music venue in Philadelphia and the only female venue, a female-owned venue in Philly. This is a venue where John Legend,
Oh, that would have been
Maroon 5, My Chemical Romance, and many more excellent bands and groups and musicians have played. And anyway, that is a very, very short introduction to an amazing person with so much more to talk about. So welcome to the show, Karen. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, Hannah, thank you so much for having me.
So my pleasure. We just before the show, we were talking a little bit about place. We were talking about a variety of things, but we were mentioning Philadelphia because Karen, you are from Philly. So can you tell us a little bit more about where you are from?
Well, I was born in Philadelphia General Hospital, which was at the time in 1944. So that's 77 years ago. It was where all of the free babies were born, all of the free births, because my mother put me right into foster care from the hospital. So I had a very unique experience here in Philadelphia, being a ward of the state of Pennsylvania. But we have an amazing city. It's so overflowing with support for the arts. And at a very young age, I had a full scholarship to Settlement Music School, which is our city music school, where you can attend with full scholarships if it's necessary. Mm-hmm. And I think we have an amazing city for art, for music, for culture. And everybody kind of knows everybody here. So there's a small town feeling. Mm-hmm. I raised both of my sons here in Center City, Philadelphia, which is unusual, and my older son went out to the Haverford School in Haverford, and my younger son went to the performing arts, the Creative and Performing Arts High School here.
Wow.
And they both went to St. Peter's School, which is like a beautiful little school on Lombard Street that really is very community oriented, and it was a special experience for both of them.
Yeah. So I think that when people think about Philadelphia, they do think of a beautiful old East Coast city, that there's red brick and classical buildings. And I think that is the general feeling of Philadelphia. So sounds like a good place to work and live and raise kids.
Yes, it is. It's really a wonderful city, and I'm very happy here. I love it, but I also love Italy, as you know.
We are going to be talking about that. I did have one question before we get into Italy and all of these things that you're working on right now. So in your introduction, you mentioned that you were born in the hospital and you were a ward of the state. Were you then placed with a family right away, or did you stay with different families?
Well, initially I was placed with one family, and then eventually I went to another family, and I stayed with that family throughout my whole childhood.
And in your childhood, was there a person who was a key presence or key sort of mentor in terms of the arts? Was there a figure for you, or did you sort of maneuver your own self to the arts?
Well, I guess I have to give my foster parents a lot of credit, because they saw to it that I went to ballet school, and also, as I said, I went to the Settlement Music School, and my first voice teacher there was very significant in mentoring my artistic development, Harold Parker. Mm. And but I think I sort of maneuvered myself, and I met my husband-to-be when I was 12, and he was a great supporter of, my talent, and just loved to hear me sing and loved to see me act. And I was just very lucky to have that kind of support. Also in my little school, Edmonds Elementary School, there was just a lot of encouragement to express yourself artistically.
Yeah, that makes all the difference, to be encouraged. So
Yes,
were
yes.
you the kind of kid that was like, I am going to do this. I am made for music. And did you propel yourself out there, or did you have people pushing you out there?
That's a really interesting question. I never thought about it. I guess I propelled myself out there, but I had support from other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, sort of the best of both worlds.
Yes.
So how has Philadelphia been? Well, how is Philadelphia right now in terms of the pandemic? Are you opening up, or is everything back to normal, or where are you?
Well, for many of the entertainment venues, it's a difficult decision, and music venues here are not actually open.
Okay.
And bars are open, restaurants are open, but I imagine music venues will be the last to open. So there's music happening over the city and
Yeah.
little events, but we're not opening until after Labor Day.
Is that the law, or is that just a decision?
It's a decision that we made for our own. We're doing a lot of renovations here, and it just seems like the perfect time to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
And we belong to a wonderful group called Pivot, which is Philadelphia Independent Venues Organizing Together.
Oh,
And that
wow.
came out of NIVA, which is the National Independent Venue Association. And so we have meetings, and we talk about issues, and we support one another.
Mm-hmm.
It's really amazing, just amazing. And Kerry Park, who is the manager at World Cafe Live, she's the head of the organization. And we are not competing with one another. We're working together to make Philadelphia as vibrant a musical center as possible, and support one another in doing that.
So that is really wonderful. So in your group of colleagues, have there been venues that have shut and are not coming back?
Yes.
And is that a large percentage of your group?
No, not a large percentage, but one is too many. Yeah. I mean, I just feel like we should all be reopening, and I feel very sorry for the venues who are not going to be able to, they weren't able to sustain themselves through the pandemic.
Yeah, yeah. So besides working on your venue projects lately, what else are you working on right now?
Well, thank you for asking. I have, we're working in our opera company's 17th world premiere Italian opera. And this opera will be very unique. It will be virtual, and it will be the first opera in flow, which means the audience will be able to begin to enter a higher state of consciousness known as flow. Right. And it will celebrate, or I should say honor, the 700th anniversary of the death of Dante Alighieri, who was the great Italian poet who wrote the Divine Comedy, Dante's Inferno. Right. Yeah.
So there is a lot to unpack with that last sentence that you just told us, that there's going to be an opera. It's going to be online. Is it going to be physical? Is it going to be in a theater as well, or just?
No, to start with, it will just be online.
Okay.
We're doing only a fragment of the opera, 30 minutes.
Okay. And I've got a link to, I've got a few links to share, but I've got a link. Oh, I've got so many links to share. I almost don't want to. I'm going to share it in a minute. I'm going to share this
Okay.
link in a minute. But so the other piece to unpack about this is the idea of flow. And is this the idea that comes from the book by Mihaly?
Yes, it is, as a matter of fact. I'm trying to find our connection here because somehow I wanted to turn off my Facebook and I lost our connection, and now I can't find how I get back to you. So I guess I don't have to see you, but I'd love to be able to see you.
Oh, you're
I'm
not
not,
seeing the screen right now?
no,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, let's just continue.
Okay.
So can you tell me more about flow and how that works with the opera?
Yes, well, in 1973, I met a composer and inventor by the name of James Wilson. He was doing his advanced degree at Temple University and also working at Princeton University. And he had developed a machine that could show the underlying movement of music. Now that's 1973, and here we are in 2021. And I've been wanting all these years to incorporate, to have a collaboration with Jim, because his machine was able to demonstrate that when you watched a light going up and down a sine curve, moving slowly at a specific speed, that it could demonstrate the underlying flow of the music. Now, it's not all music qualifies to be in flow because it has to show these specific journey where there are points where you're at the top of the sine curve and you're at the bottom of the sine curve. So that's when specific events occur in the music.
Do those specific events correspond with events occurring in the brain or physiological events? Does that turn into the human experience of flow?
Those are events which occur in the music.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is there are those events. So let's just say it's metaphorical. There are high points and there are low points. But what I love so much about flow is the idea that in life, it's a metaphor for we're going to have our ups and we're going to have our downs, but just keep going. And don't get all involved with those ups or those downs so as to stop the continuous flow. Okay. And that's what you experience when you have the good fortune to hear a piece of music that is in flow. Okay. Not all music, of course, is executed in flow or written in flow, but Jim is able to show through his machine if it is in fact or not in flow.
Right, I see. And so are there composers who are working with this idea specifically to create works in flow, or is it something that people either haphazardly do or don't do?
Well, the composer that's working on our opera, Mauro Fabbri, he's an Italian maestro. He has written his opera. We have 7 scenes, the overture, and 6 scenes following that. And those pieces of music have all been verified by Jim on his machine to be in flow. Now there's also the execution of the music. And for example, in order for an opera singer to be able to perform in flow, they cannot be in what we call the explicit memory. In other words, they can't be thinking about what they're doing technically. It has to be second nature. And so just like a high performance athlete who goes through school figures in order to develop the different skills necessary to perform, like say an ice skater, to perform in flow, we have a specific system I have developed that the singers go through, that they step by step prepare themselves in a very specific way in order to be able to enter into flow.
That is fascinating. I think that so when you're working with the singers and the musicians, are you helping them memorize and internalize? Is there can you tell us a little bit about the system?
Yes, in fact, if you go to dantetheopera.com, you can see I break down the system under, I call it the Saillant system to enter flow. And it begins with, and this is something most singers do not like, it begins with putting the putting the text into the implicit memory.
Okay.
Meaning that they could say the text as easily as we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't have to think about saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
But most singers, or many singers, not most, but many singers never put the text even into the implicit memory so that it's second nature. And that is essential. You must begin, I believe, with the text. Then after that are the pitches, the vowels, specifically the vowels, because the vowels have pitches, the voiced consonants, the phrases, the meaning, all of these different steps that they have to go through so that the school figures of singing are executed and the artist is able to go into flow.
So when it comes to rehearsing and memorizing works without entering flow, are people just sort of memorizing on a superficial level? Like, there obviously are levels of memory because we do memorize and forget things. Do you feel like that we remember something just as long as we need to and then forget it? Like,
well, it's more about which part of the memory it goes into, the implicit or the explicit. The explicit memory means you have to think about it. You haven't put it into your unconscious. Yeah. I'm interested, and I believe that for an artist, a singer, an opera singer, to be able to perform and not hold their breath. That's really the key, because say if you don't know those words like the back of your hand, then it makes you stop and hold your breath for that split second, and it throws you out of flow.
That's really interesting. So flow is a complete memory. It's like your whole instrument is
you're immersed. You're immersed. Yes.
And so is that something that your piece in that, your training system, have you been working on that for a long time?
It's been evolving, and I've been working to evolve it for quite many years.
Okay. Yeah. And that is really great. So I've shared dantetheopera.com. And earlier on, we were talking about, we mentioned Italy. Is this opera related to your contacts and experiences in Italy?
I would say that everything that I'm doing presently is related to the past 16 years that I've been working on stage for 1 month with artists from 75 different countries through the years on this stage of Teatro degli Avvalorante in Città della Pieve.
How did you get involved in that?
Well, my husband was in a coma in our home for 1.5 years. I took care of him, and he died in 2000. And at that point, I felt I needed to return to Italy for healing. Okay. So I contacted my former Italian teacher in Siena, Angela Cingottini, who I hadn't talked to for a number of years. And I told her I really needed to come back to Italy. Mm-hmm. And so instead of going to Siena, she had me get off the train in Chiusi, which is on the border of Umbria and Tuscany. And she drove me round and around this mountain till we arrived at the very top. And there was this magical town called Città della Pieve, city of the baptismal font.
Okay.
And I stayed there with her, and I had rented an apartment in Florence, but I fell so in love with this town. People were inviting me for ecological walks, and the head of culture took me into the theater. This theater had just been renovated after a major explosion, and there were many decades of renovation. And it had just at the moment that I arrived been finished. And they took me into the theater. I stood on the stage, I sang a high C, and I said, I'm going to bring artists from all over the world here, and we're going to create new operas.
Okay. What an amazing story, just how all those pieces allowed you to arrive on that stage and sing that high C. Yes. So that is amazing. And they said, yes, you said, this is what we're doing. They obviously agreed to it. And yes. So how did you get all those people to join you in your vision?
Well, at first we began with artists from Philadelphia. And both of my sons came with me and sang in our first production. And then slowly it developed that we reached out to artists from other countries and found that they were very interested in coming. Until for our last operas, we had every opera singer and every instrumentalist from a different culture. So the last opera we did in the town had 25 cultures in one opera, and it had evolved into a world peace project.
Wow.
We're working on an intercultural communication model, which is similar to the way I ask the artists to work on stage, which is self-organization. So there are a number of exercises that I've developed, and through these exercises, they develop what I call Ausstrahlung. It's a German word that I read in some writings of Sir Charles Mackerras, who was a famous Australian and then British conductor. And it means emanations, the ability to communicate beyond language, which of course a great conductor must have. And so we create these Ausstrahlung-esque productions on the stage. They're working only 1 month. As far as I know, there's no other opera company in the world that creates a world premiere with costumes, sets, staging, orchestra in 1 month. But we do it, and the town, the energy of the town is so profound. It's so beautiful. It retains its Italianità. And for that reason, we're all living there in this very small town. And this Ausstrahlung is amazing. It's basically intuition. So there's an unconscious consensus developed among the artists about where they are on the stage. Okay. And it is so profoundly beautiful. And of course, that's what we need in our world, don't we? Absolutely. Unconscious consensus.
So when you have when everybody arrives to start working, do you talk about this, or do you just move forward with it? Is it something that everybody's aware of and talking about, or is it what you bring and it's your sort of thesis position with your work?
It's, well, first I have everyone stand on the stage when they first arrive, and I ask them to do one thing. I raise my right hand, and I ask them to do what I did. And everyone raises their left hand because they don't raise their left hand. They raise their right hand. They do not mirror. Out of all the artists that are there, maybe one artist, maybe two artists will mirror. the rest of them will raise their right hand. And from there, the discussion begins about why mirroring is the fastest way for us to get this work done that we're going to do. And then exercises proceed. Counting exercises, for example, if in the cast we have 12 artists, we have these exercises where they count from 1 to 12, but each person can only have one number. Mm-hmm. And so if the number is duplicated, we start again. And there again is an action of unconscious consensus where they have to sort of agree without talking about it. Who's going to let that person be number 2, that person's, and it's very funny, and everyone's laughing a lot. And then there are all sorts of physical exercises that we do. And eventually everyone becomes so close very quickly.
Mm-hmm. So fascinating. I am thinking earlier you mentioned that this is what the world needs right now, that we need to be able to not just see other people, but feel them, what they are experiencing. And, I guess the word I would use is profound empathy, but there must
Definitely
be a better word for
empathy.
it.
Yes.
So to take your artistic learning systems and discoveries and to move them into the world, could you see yourself doing that? Could you see yourself transitioning these programs to something that could be used for politicians or in business and other spaces?
Yes, and in fact, that's one of my goals, to develop an intercultural communication model. And I have worked with GAP International, which is an executive training company, to train executives to be more creative. And I've used commedia dell'arte as the vehicle for that. And of course, Ausstrahlung and emanations and empathy and intuition are all part of that model also.
Yeah. So it's not something that it's not just nice to have for artists. It's essential for human experience.
I think so. And when an artist has that and an audience comes to see artists organizing themselves, not where a director's saying on measure 34, do this, and on page 15, do that. But they're all doing it themselves, and they're doing it beautifully. And they are creating sculptures on the stage that communicate the meaning of the music. Then the audience can go out with their frame of reference transformed, expanded, and hopefully go into the world. I mean, that's what art originally, the cathartic experience, is ultimately the penultimate gift that an artist can give to an audience. And so that's what we're doing in Città della Pieve, and the town is totally behind us. And even last year when we couldn't come, they created a 20-day exposition to share all of the years that we've been there throughout the entire town in the windows of the shops. So this is what all art should be about, I believe. And of course, business, politicians definitely should have this ability to feel, to sense, to communicate with one another beyond language. It must be beyond language, in my feeling. Mm-hmm. We can't survive with language as the only way to communicate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm imagining you didn't go to Italy this year. Is that correct?
No, we didn't.
So what's coming next? Are you going to be able to?
Well, we have this opera, the Dante the Opera, and we're very involved with that. And it will premiere in September.
Okay.
On the site. The Institute for Italian Culture in New York is helping make that project possible, which
Amazing.
is just, and it will be the most diverse opera in history. We'll have 35 different cultures represented in this opera.
So you pulled this together during the pandemic years,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
So
yes.
everybody was home in the different countries, and you produced an opera virtually. Is that
Well, we're
correct?
producing it. We're in the process of it now.
And what does that look like?
A lot of work.
Yeah.
uh, One of the main issues is the way I was envisioning the opera was with motion design. So rather than having the adagio machine with the line going, the light going up the sine curve, I want to have motion design that moves at the speed of the underlying movement of the music. So what the audience is going to see is that motion design, which in conjunction with the music will enable them to begin to enter the flow state.
Okay.
So we have motion designer from China is leading the group. Then we have Netherlands, Slovenia, Nigeria, and one other country, India. So it takes a long time to get for just a minute of motion design. There's a lot of work.
What is motion design?
It's sort of animation, but very advanced movement on the stage.
And
on the screen?
Yeah. So with the motion design, is that happening with people or on top of the people? Is it something projected?
It's the video part of the premiere, so there are no people. You're not going to be seeing the opera singers, except maybe in specific ways that the motion designer is using their faces.
Okay.
But you'll be listening to the opera singers singing in flow, and then there'll be these visual images moving. For example, I was looking at a production of Turandot that had motion design imposed. This was a live production. It was not virtual. But what happens is every time there's a high note, boom, there's something goes off, or boom, something else goes off. And so it's more, that's not about flow.
Right.
That's about spectacle.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is showing this slow movement so that the audience can slow down. Because it's interesting, even musicians, when they try to adjust the speed of the adagio machine, they tend to want it to move faster.
Yeah.
Some of them don't realize that it's the underlying flow we're talking about. So it's not related to tempo or high notes or how long a note is held. It's the underlying movement. And that's what is so tranquilizing and relieving of stress.
So you could be listening to a work that sounds where your toe is tapping, where there's the rhythm is fast, but the underlying movement of like the shape underneath that is actually where you're getting the flow from.
Yes.
Is that right?
For example, we took Snoop Dogg.
Okay.
And I can send you that link. And we put his performance onto the adagio machine. And we could show where he was pretty much in flow in this particular piece. A little bit, his percussionist started to rush at one point. So when you see the light moving, and then you hear the percussionist rushing a little bit, you can see that it's kind of lost the flow. But generally, it's so I think all musicians can find this flow. They can find it in their music, no matter the genre.
Yeah. Okay. So it's cross genre. Very good. So right now is June, and you've got, so what do you have going on right this second?
Well, right this second, we're getting ready for the National Independent Venue Week. And we are going to make a presentation called Percussion for Peace. We
Okay.
did this last year where we had, I think, 14 or 16 different countries involved, and we're doing the same thing this year. So we're very involved with getting that cast, because we don't have all the worldwide percussionists yet, and then making the video so we can present it virtually for Percussion for Peace for the National Independent Venue Week.
Wow. And is that a new project, Percussion for Peace?
We did it last year, and I think I sent a link about it. I hope
Okay.
I did.
I think so. I think I can share something about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's on our YouTube, and it's a really powerful compilation of various percussion artists from all over the world. And Freddie Miranda from South America helped me put that together. He's an outstanding percussionist.
And what do you know what platform you were using to, were people playing together, or was everybody adding their contribution and it was compiled at a distance? Is that how it worked?
Yes, it was all pre-recorded.
Okay, very good. And so I think that percussionists are a natural vocal, a natural person to be speaking about peace. There's just something about drums, drumming, peace that just goes together, holding down the rhythm. There is.
It's so amazing.
So very
And
good.
there's like a brotherhood, a sisterhood of drummers all over the world. They feel very connected to one another.
Yeah. I've noticed that, and I know that about people who, friends of mine, colleagues of mine in the percussion world. And why do you think that is, specifically with percussionists?
Wow, that's such a good question. I'm not sure. Do you know? Do you have a thought about that?
Well, it could just simply be the kind of person who's drawn to percussion, and, just the whole thing about rhythm, about communicating through rhythm. It kind of, I mean, obviously all musicians are communicating through rhythm also, but there's something really fundamental about percussion, about laying down the rhythm for the experience. I don't know. I'm just riffing on it, but I think there is something there.
Yeah. It's I think you're right. There is a certain kind of person, and most people are doing it with other people, like-minded people. And there's something about the beat that unites them.
There is.
And here I am talking about not the beat, but there is, it's very profound. One of the exercises I do with singers to memorize their music is something I call point and stomp. And they point with both their forefingers to their feet as they alternate feet, and they say the words so that each word on another foot. And it feels very, very percussive. Yeah. And it gets the words into their unconscious mind. And I developed that for my son, who was playing the prince in The Princess and the Pea, and he didn't have ease memorizing his words. And this exercise just came to me. But I found it has very profound effect on the performers,
Yeah.
opera singers. For one example is a young baritone who had previously been because of his nationality, he's Filipino descent, and he had been part of a gang here in Philadelphia, and he actually had knife markings on him. And so his voice, I felt, wasn't coming from his full self. And so when he started to do this exercise, he got so angry because there was so much anger inside of him that he was finally connecting with. And then he started to cry, and it was very emotional. So there's something very profound about this kind of connecting deeply to the beat that I feel like these musicians have, that this baritone experienced. And then I happened to notice it on the internet as a form of communication in some Aboriginal tribes, where they are dedicating, where the tribal members are dedicating themselves to a married couple or some kind of an event, and they're da 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 da, and they're it's like, I was like, whoa, I had goosebumps all over. And I, of course, sent this video to the baritone so he could see. This was many years after we had worked together, but I was very excited to find that. So getting back to our primitive selves is so important. You know, that of course the mind is beautiful and it gives us so many elevated thoughts, but also we have so much inside of us that connects us in the most primitive way. And it makes me cry to talk about it, because I think the drumming and this stomping that these Aboriginal people do is takes us into a part of ourselves that those of us who live in the city, you know, don't really connect with.
Right. When we are setting our alarm clock, getting up in the morning, doing your thing, going back outside, coming back inside. Yeah.
Recently we had we're closed, our music venue is closed, but we decided to have, because our neighborhood here in Northern Liberties, where our headquarters for our opera company is, and our music venue, decided to have a sidewalk sale. And so we did an outside event, music and art. And we had a group here in Philadelphia called Mad Beats, Beatz. And they came, and you know, they're doing these kinds of events all over the city, where you know, they have their drums and they're doing all this incredible percussion. And in fact, they'll be our representative from the United States for the Percussion for Peace. But everyone was so moved, we didn't want them to stop. We just were asking more. Because it's something we're missing, like we're missing the ocean. You know, we need to be in the ocean. We also need to be connected to our primitive selves, and these drumming groups help us do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody feels it. Yeah, exactly. It's really cross genre for sure.
It is. And every nationality has some form of drumming. And it's so interesting to see the differences and the similarities.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely through time, that it's absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
So you've told us only just like the tip of the iceberg about your current projects, what you are working on. If you could if you could do your ideal next project, what would it be? What would you love to do? What's your dream project? Or maybe you're doing it. Maybe you are doing your dream project.
Well, I do think Dante the Opera is a dream come true. It absolutely is. And so I'd like to realize it. Like I say, this year is the 700th anniversary of Dante's death, but I encourage everyone to read his works. We need to think about the nobility of character that he exposes and espouses, and the high-mindedness and the caring for one another, and the empathy, as you pointed out. So that certainly is a project that is just thrilling. And of course, reopening our music venue is another project that I'm really looking forward to. Having all of the bands here. You know, it's really great at 77 years old to be able to go up to a singer-songwriter or a rock group or a heavy metal group and say, you guys are really talented. Don't give up. Keep going.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you think you want to stop, call me. Don't do it. You know, we are very particular about who we have on our stage, and it gives me such a kick to see the way these guys kind of look at each other, like this lady with white hair is telling us not to give up. Okay, well, you know, maybe we shouldn't give up ever.
Right.
Maybe we can do this because, as you know, it's a very difficult career.
Yeah.
And these artists make so many sacrifices, all of the artists, the opera artists, the metal artists, the singer-songwriters, the poets, it's just difficult.
Yeah. And certainly having somebody verbalizing and also communicating otherwise, I would say, just support and respect and like love for the, not just the outcome, but for the whole process makes a huge difference. So brava for having a venue, having live music, and not pigeonholing yourself into just one love, but you know, I think
we do have this opera coming up that is about the opioid crisis in Kensington. And it's based on a movie called Snow Babies. So it's going to be Snow Babies, the opera. Okay. And we're going to have young teenagers performing in the opera. So when I say children performing in the opera, I mean singing sweetly. You know, we bring children to Italy from mostly from the United States to perform with us. And we don't have them sing like, quote, opera singers. You know, everything is about being in harmony with nature. So none of that stuff, you know. But anyway, so we're creating this opera about to try to encourage young people to stay away from opioids, stay away from drugs, find other meaning in life, and pursue something meaningful that gives the same kind of high, as you know, right? It gives the same kind of high, except it's not harmful to our bodies. So we're creating this opera along with the creators of Snow Babies, SNO, it's spelled babies. Okay. So you can go to that website, Snow Babies, the movie, I think it is. And we're going to go into the schools here in Philadelphia with it, and then we have a documentary also by another brilliant team out of Bryn Mawr Television, John Vichuti and Jill. And we're going to have discussions in the schools here in Philadelphia. And then we hope to take that project nationwide.
Oh, neat.
So that we can really, and the idea is to have children from the schools performing also in the production. So we would prepare them ahead of time over the internet, and then put them into the production once we get to the school. So with our operas in Italy, we've done 10 years here, as an opera to honor the children in the Holocaust who were never able to go home. And we would have about 40 children in each one of those productions. And I believe it's the best way to introduce children to opera is to have them perform in one,
Absolutely.
especially an opera that's in harmony with nature, where where they're organizing themselves on stage and where all of these principles of our work are being realized.
That's lovely. That's beautiful. So
Thank you.
where a child is going to feel comfortable doing the thing and not feel discomfort, or feel like there's something wrong with them because they can't do it a certain way.
Yes, they are able to. In fact, one of my most beloved memories of doing the Holocaust Children's Opera is The Duck. A little boy was in the opera and he wanted to be a duck, and there was no duck in the opera. So we created a duck. We created the role of a duck, and he was able to be the duck. And to this day, his mother writes and tells me, because now he's a professional musician.
Okay.
And she writes and says, "Our duck is doing beautifully."
That's a success story. That's
I know.
wonderful. That's great.
It's so beautiful. So you're right. They're given permission, and it's very empowering. It helps them develop self-confidence in their own decision-making. Their ability to make decisions is supported and confirmed.
Yeah.
And,
lovely. That's great. So one of the key things that we wanted to talk about today was Dante the Opera. And I just want you to remind us again, where can we see it? When can we see it? And what should we expect to see? Loop us around. You've already told us this, but loop us one more time.
Okay. Well, it's going to premiere on the website. Do you have it there?
Yeah, I'm going to post it again.
It's the website of the Institute for Italian Culture, and it's Stranieri. Is it Stranieri?
I'm posting it right now.
Okay. And it's going to be in the Dante room. And so, and also they'll be able to follow along if they go to Dante the Opera, because we won't be streaming the opera there, but we'll be having information about how to see the virtual production. That's going to be probably the third week of September.
Okay, excellent. So we should bookmark the stanzetitaliane.italian,
.it, yes.
The Institute for Italian Culture in New York. We should bookmark their website for the Dante Opera.
Right, they have a special website when you go to their website that says Stanze Italiane, STANZEITALIANE.IT. And that means the Italian rooms. And then when you go by there, you can scroll down to Dante.
And it is a beautiful website, and I think it's going to be opening its doors to an amazing opera. So be sure to bookmark it and to check it out. So I feel like this was sort of a short conversation, which could be many more chapters to this conversation. There's a lot of other things to talk about. But I wanted to ask you before we go, what is all of your many skills and experiences, what is your superpower?
I've been thinking about that this week. It's so funny that you would ask, not in terms of superpower, but just like, what is it that I do? And one thing that is very strong is I am a dowser. Do you know what a dowser is?
Is it looking for something? Tell me more.
Yes. It's someone who finds things. And I've noticed that when I've had other people helping me with our projects, that this is a skill that I have. I didn't even realize I had it until I realized that some people don't quite have it as much as I do. And it has a lot to do with intuition.
Yeah.
Being in what we call the primary impulse. That means letting ideas pop into your mind and not erasing them. Just having that, and you can practice this ability, which I teach all of the artists who come to Italy by doing unconscious speaking, where you just say any words that come to your mind in a conversation with another person. And then you also can simultaneously speak with them. So while they're speaking, you're speaking, saying exactly the same thing they're saying.
Wow.
Right in the moment. So this intuition, this very strong intuition, then enables you to find things. And basically, I guess that's what we're all doing or wanting to do, don't you think? We want to find things.
I think so too. And I think that there's sort of different parts to that. You have to know what you are looking for. Sometimes we don't even know. So that's like self-awareness, where you've determined what you actually are looking for in a moment or in a broader picture. But I do think that you're right, that is something that we are doing here.
And actually, I am into not knowing. There are different ways of making art, and my way is through not knowing. And that way of making art evolved after I took care of my husband in the coma for 1.5 years. Okay. After having that very intense nonverbal relationship with him, because he couldn't communicate in any way at all, not even move a finger, not move an eye, nothing. And this idea of not knowing started to really become very important. So, of course, many people work that they know what they want.
Yeah.
I don't know what I want, and it's revealed to me. And constant discovering myself, constantly having things revealed to me. And being willing to accept the revelation. That's another.
So do you think that you are revealing things to yourself through your awareness, or do you think that there is something that you're moving through space and things are being revealed to you? Is it you?
That's what it feels like. It feels like a part of me is in touch with the part where things can be revealed to me. And sometimes when people doubt me or are very critical of me, I start losing contact with that part. And so I made an opera about it, and I called it Adzaio. And that's the creative part of all of us, which can never be destroyed. But it can be questioned, it can be lessened. And it was important for me to make that opera because I was being questioned a lot in the way that I work, because it's very unusual.
Yeah.
And so, these ideas reveal themselves to me, or even like being in Città della Pieve. I mean, that was revealed to me. I didn't even think I didn't even know I was going there. I thought I was going to Siena and then on to Florence,
Yeah.
And
exactly.
So if I had insisted on going to Siena and Florence, I could have.
Yeah.
And then I would have missed out on this whole 16 years of creating new operas. So from speaking with artists at the University of the Arts here in Philadelphia, I've collaborated with Mi Kyung Lee, who's the head of fibers there, in many, many of our operas. And in talking with other artists there are different ways that they work. Some work, they know what they want, they know the objective, and they work toward it. Others let the art be revealed to them. Yeah. And that's the kind of artist that I am. Doesn't mean that it means that I'm very receptive. My anima, the female side of me, is very, very developed, where I receive a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I send it out through the animus, but in different ways than many people who are, especially opera directors. They're just not working in this self-organization, unconscious consensus system.
Yeah,
And so there is sometimes resistance to that.
for sure. I think any change, any different way of doing is going to create discomfort and, and other things for sure. Well, thank you
Yes.
so much for sharing all of this. This is
Oh,
so
thank you.
fascinating, so interesting. We covered absolutely important topics. We
We
covered
did.
art,
Thank
peace
you.
on earth, raising children, raising artists. All of this is really, really wonderful. So for those of you who joined us live, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to see some familiar faces. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, Andre. He says, another interesting interview. It was a great interview.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much for joining us. Be sure and bookmark the links that I've put in the chat, especially for the Institute for Italian Culture in New York. Be sure to bookmark that. Find the Dante opera, read your Dante,
Yes.
review, take notes, and follow Karen Lauria Saillant. And anyway, see you
Thank
guys
you
next
so
time.
much. Thank you. Thank you.